They told you that all debt is evil. They said if you borrow, you're a failure. They warned you that the only good life is a debt-free life, and you believed them. Because they wore suits, because they had degrees, because they spoke from behind podiums, while you sat in rows like soldiers waiting for permission to live. But what if everything they taught you about money was a lie soaked in fear and wrapped in obedience? What if debt, yes, that four-letter word, wasn't your enemy, but your most powerful weapon? Let me say it straight. Not all debt is bad, and if you don't understand the difference, you'll never build wealth. You'll spend your entire life chained to the grind, chasing dollars that flee the moment they land in your hands. Because here's the truth. Debt isn't the problem. Ignorance is. We were raised in a system that glorified conformity and punished curiosity. They taught us how to obey, but never how to think. They filled our heads with formulas and facts, but left our financial statements blank. They told us to go to school, get good grades, and drown in student loans, all for the illusion of security. We signed on the dotted line without even understanding what we were signing, because we trusted the system. But the system was never built to make you rich. It was built to keep you compliant. You see, the moment you took on debt to buy something that doesn't put money in your pocket, you made a liability your master. You bought the house you live in and called it an asset even though it bleeds money every month. You leased the car, financed the furniture, swiped the card for dinners and shoes and experiences you couldn't afford, and told yourself it was worth it. But was it? Or did it just leave you one emergency away from collapse? Bad debt is a parasite. It feeds on dreams and fattens on regret. It's student loans for degrees you'll never use. It's maxed out cards on things that lose value the second you buy them. It's debt that takes from you but never gives back. But good debt? Good debt is a tool, a bridge, a force multiplier. Think of Thomas Edison. He didn't invent the light bulb in a flash of genius. He failed over 1,000 times. But do you think he paid cash for every experiment? No. He borrowed. He leveraged. He used other people's money to fund the vision. Because vision without capital is just a fantasy. Or look at Henry Ford, the man who revolutionized transportation. Ford didn't bootstrap the assembly line by saving pennies. He borrowed, scaled, reinvested, and multiplied. Because he understood something simple. When you use debt to create cash flow, you're not enslaving yourself. You're freeing yourself from the slavery of time. Bad debt buys comfort. Good debt buys freedom. Imagine this. A 25-year-old buys a one-bedroom condo. He puts a tenant in it. The rent pays the mortgage. And he pockets $25 each month. Not much, right? But it's not about the amount. It's about the direction. That $25 is proof of concept. Proof that wealth can be engineered. That money can be put to work like a soldier, bringing back reinforcements. That was Robert Kiyosaki's first taste of good debt. Today, he owns over 6,500 rental units, 6,500 doors that don't sleep, 6,500 doors that send cash every month, whether the market goes up or down. That's the power of good debt. The rich don't work for money. They make money work for them. They borrow money to buy assets, income-producing properties, businesses, systems. Then they let those assets pay back the debt. It's a cycle of wealth creation the middle class never learns. Because the middle class borrows to consume, the rich borrow to invest. There's a difference. It's not just in the math, it's in the mindset. Because financial freedom isn't just about numbers. It's about how you see the world. Do you see money as something to chase or something to command? Do you fear debt because it hurt you once? Or do you learn how to use it because you refuse to stay broke forever? Abraham Lincoln once said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." Financial intelligence is that sharpened axe. It's not about hustling harder, it's about thinking better. Debt isn't the enemy, stupidity is, blind spending is, borrowing with no plan is. But when you understand the game, debt becomes your advantage. Let me be clear. If you're drowning in credit cards, dodging collectors, buying liabilities to look rich on Instagram, cut the cards. Get out of bad debt. Clean your house. Because you can't build empires on a foundation of sand. But once you've stabilized, Once you've controlled your impulses, once you've learned the difference between assets and liabilities, between cash flow and expenses, then you're ready for good debt. Debt that pays you back, debt that buys you time, debt that unlocks doors. Don't believe the myth that owning a home makes you rich. If you live in it, it's a liability. Why? Because it takes money out of your pocket every single month. Mortgage, taxes, insurance, repairs. But if you buy a property, rent it out, and it puts money into your pocket, that's an asset. And if you use debt to buy it, congratulations. That's good debt. So don't fall for the slogans. Debt-free is the way to be is only true if you're financially illiterate. But if you want to play the game of wealth, if you want to sit at the table where the real money moves, you need to learn how to use debt like the rich do. Walt Disney mortgaged everything he had to build Disneyland. The banks laughed at him. The experts mocked him. But Disney understood something most people never do. That debt, when used wisely, is not a shackle. It's a lever. He borrowed against his future. He risked what was for what could be. And generations have lived in the magic of his vision ever since. You're not here to live a small life. You're not here to obey the rules written by people who gave up on their dreams. You're here to write new rules, to play a new game, to turn the very tools that once enslaved you into instruments of freedom. And that game starts with one question. Are you ready to use debt to generate income? Or are you content staying stuck in the cycle they designed for you? Because I gave them a home, and in return they give me something even more powerful than money: cash flow. The steady heartbeat of wealth, the rhythm of financial freedom, not from saving, not from cutting coupons or skipping lattes, but from understanding how to turn debt into a tool, a servant that works for me 24/7, while others fear it like fire. Debt is like fire. To the undisciplined, it burns. It consumes. It destroys. But to the trained, to the financially literate, debt is a forge. It's how cities are built, how empires are funded, how fortunes are made. Carnegie didn't build steel without it. Rockefeller didn't drill oil without it. Walt Disney didn't create the happiest place on earth without using it. Even the United States of America, the greatest economy in the world, runs on it. So the real question isn't, how do I avoid debt? The real question is, do I know how to control it? Because controlled debt is leverage. And leverage, when applied with intelligence, multiplies everything. That's what they never taught you in school. Because schools don't teach leverage. They teach obedience. They train you to avoid risk, follow orders, and hand over your time in exchange for a paycheck. They teach you that a job is security, that a house you live in is an asset, that student loans are an investment. It's not that they lie, it's that they don't know it. They've been passing down the same playbook since 1945. But that playbook was written for a world that no longer exists. A world where pensions were real, where you could work one job for 40 years, where housing prices matched wages, where college actually increased your chances of becoming wealthy. That world is gone. And now you, the entrepreneur, the builder, the one who dares to question the system, are left to write your own playbook. One where you don't run from debt, but learn to wield it. Like a blacksmith shapes iron, you shape your financial future with a different kind of fire. You take what most people fear, and you master it. Here's what that mastery looks like. You don't buy liabilities with debt, you buy assets. You don't take out loans to look rich. You take out loans to build wealth. You don't let interest work against you. You make it work for you. That's the difference between the poor and the rich. The poor use debt to escape. The rich use debt to expand. The poor borrow money to consume. The rich borrow money to create. Let me give you a picture. Two people walk into a bank. Both ask for $500,000. One is buying a luxury car, a vacation, a kitchen renovation. It feels good for a moment. But every dollar borrowed pulls money out of their future. That's bad debt. It's a noose, slowly tightening, payment by payment. The other uses that same $500,000 to acquire an apartment complex that generates $6,000 per month in cash flow. The rent pays the mortgage. The tax benefits reduce their liabilities. The tenants pay off the loan for them. And 10 years later, they walk away with a fully paid off asset worth twice what they borrowed. That's good debt. That's intelligent debt. That's freedom on autopilot. Now, let me ask you, which person are you becoming? Because it's not about how much money you have in the bank. It's not about how big your salary is. It's about how you think. Do you think like a consumer or a creator? Do you fear debt or do you understand it? Look, I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it won't scare you. But everything worth building starts with courage, not comfort. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before he gave the world light. Henry Ford was laughed out of meetings before he put the world on wheels. Walt Disney was rejected over 300 times before a bank gave him the capital to build Disneyland. All of them, every single one, used debt to bring their visions to life. And they didn't do it with credit cards or consumption loans. They did it with clarity, discipline, and a deep understanding of how money works. Now it's your turn. You want to be free? You want to live a life on your terms? Then learn the game of cash flow. Debt is not your enemy. Ignorance is. The borrower is not always the slave. Sometimes the borrower becomes the builder. So start thinking differently. Start thinking in cash flow. Before you buy, ask, does this put money in my pocket or take it out? Before you borrow, ask, is this funding my freedom or financing my fantasies? Before you sign that loan, ask, will this make me a slave to payments or a master of assets? This is your moment, not to escape debt, but to elevate through it. Because the truth is this, the poor work for money, the rich make money work for them, and the wealthy, they make debt work too. So the question is no longer, can I afford it? The new question is, can it pay for itself and then some? That's how investors think. That's how entrepreneurs think. That's how the wealthy think. They don't chase income. They build infrastructure. They don't pray for a raise. They design revenue streams. And it all starts with one shift, from working for money to making money work for you, from fearing debt to harnessing it. Let me tell you something personal. I wasn't born into wealth. I didn't win the lottery. No one handed me a trust fund. What I did get was fed up. Fed up with the 9-to-5 grind. Fed up with making just enough to survive. Fed up with living paycheck to paycheck while the bank lived off my effort. So I studied. I read every book I could find. I learned from investors, from failures, from mentors who understood this game. And I realized something most people never will. It's not about how hard you work. It's about what your money is doing while you sleep. That's leverage. That's power. That's the new rich. And you don't need to wait 30 years to retire. You don't need to hope that one day maybe, if you're lucky, you'll be free. You can build it now. Because we're not in the industrial age anymore. We're in the information age. The rules have changed, and the biggest risk is playing by the old ones. If you're still trying to save your way to wealth, you've already lost. If you're still afraid of debt, you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. The middle class plays defense. The rich play offense. And the wealthy? They play with systems. They use other people's money. They use good debt. They buy cash-flowing assets. They reinvest the returns. And they repeat the cycle. That is how wealth is built. Not by grinding for 40 years, but by thinking differently today. So here's what I leave you with. You don't need more money. You need better understanding. You don't need a raise. You need assets that raise your income. You don't need to fear debt. You need to master it, because once you do, you will never be poor again.